Hi, welcome to a very special Thanksgiving episode of Gateways to Glendale College. I'm your hostess, Andra Verstratete, and today we are going to be talking with Chef Andrew Feldman, who is in our Culinary Arts Department. Actually, you're the department chair.
Correct.
And we are going to today make 2 Thanksgiving stuffings, correct?
That's right. You know, in the past, Sandra, last year we made pumpkin creme brulee, and the year before we made pie. So this time I thought we'd change it up a little bit and do a couple of savory items to go along with the turkey.
Sounds good. And let me just ask you, I know you've been calling it dressing and I've been calling it stuffing. So do we need to differentiate? What's the difference between a dressing and a stuffing?
You know, stuffing I think implies that it's going to be, that the mix is going to be put inside something. And traditionally that was done with turkeys. I think the Victorians thought that sounded a little unseemly, so they started calling it dressing rather than stuffing. I think the words are interchangeable. I don't like to stuff turkeys themselves because the turkey itself kind of functions like a big insulator, and the stuffing never gets hot enough. If the stuffing does get hot, the turkey is overcooked. So I always think it's important to cook the stuffing on the side and then serve it on the side, not in the bird itself. I know people want the flavor of the turkey in the stuffing, but I think if we use a really good stock, a liquid, it's going to make a big difference. And then we don't have to worry about issues of foodborne illness because we know that the stuffing itself is going to be hot and safe to eat.
Right. So I think we're going to start off with our traditional stuffing, correct?
I'm from Massachusetts, so I'm accustomed to eating traditional food. Massachusetts, home of the Pilgrims. And so we're going to make a traditional stuffing using kind of our common ingredients. So what we're going to do first is we're going to cook some onions and celery along with some spices, and then we're going to add a liquid to our toasted sourdough bread and toss that along with some toasted nuts and some dried cranberries that we have soaking in water.
Okay, so few questions here for our viewers. Toasted sourdough bread.
Yeah, I like sourdough. I think it has a little bite to it. It's not quite as bland as using white bread. You could use really any bread product, but I think the sourdough bread provides a good lift. Also, I did toast this in the oven. I think it allows the bread to absorb more of the liquid, and our stuffing actually has a nicer texture.
Okay.
So let's get started.
All right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take a saute pan and we're going to add some butter. I have about a half a pound of butter here, and this is going to feed at least 20 people. So I know people might think initially, oh, that's sure a lot of butter, but frankly, when you divide it between that many people, it's not going to make such a difference. Okay. So let's add the onions and celery to that, and we're going to cook this slowly on the stove. You can add it right in, Andra.
And now you chop these, you pre-chop these onions.
I did, just to move things along. And I know you have excellent, nice skills, but I thought that I would do that for us.
But just for our viewers, they're going to spend some time chopping here,
yeah,
correct?
Small diced, just so they'll cook a little faster and we'll get more uniform mix in our stuffing. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on the stove. We're just going to cook these slowly, and we like to say sweat. And sweat means we're going to cook it without browning until the vegetables soften. They're going to give up a little liquid so it looks like they're sweating, and that's going to make the vegetables more tender and kind of give up that raw veggie taste. In the meanwhile, maybe we could butter a couple of pans here.
Sure.
There we go. I'll take that. Thanks.
So what do I do here with it?
So just take some melted butter and just evenly distribute that along the bottoms and sides of the pan. And that's so the item won't stick. It'll be easier for us to free it after we bake it.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why is it that we use melted butter? Whenever I butter a pan, I usually just take a lump of butter and smear it around.
It's really just for convenience sake.
Okay.
I'm used to kind of mass cooking, so I think if I needed to do 25 pans of dressing, it would be a lot faster.
Okay, got it. Is this enough butter,
I
Chef
think so.
Feldman?
Yeah, so as long as it's well covered, I think we're in good shape.
Just put a little bit more
Perfect.
there. Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to do 2 stuffings. The first one is our traditional stuffing. The second one is going to be this kind of Southwest style. So since we have the butter out, let's butter both pans at the same time.
Okay. Now, about the Southwest style, Let me ask you, is that because we're all in California and we like to spice it up a little bit?
I think you're exactly right.
Okay.
In the East Coast, people are a little more conservative, not only in their politics, but in what they like to eat. And chilies are not part of the cuisine as they are here. Also, we're in a corn-based environment, so we use a lot of corn here. And I think that's going to just kind of give a more local taste to what we got going.
Great.
We're also going to use a variety of spices, and that will liven it up a little bit.
Okay. Sure.
There you go. I'll take that.
To you.
Okay, so while that sweats, let's talk about our two other elements here. We have some toasted nuts, and we have some dried cranberries. And stuffings really can be made of so many different things. We could use bread like we're using, but rice is common as well. So there's a lot of stuffing elements that could be taken from different cultures, rice, for example. Now we're using cranberries, and I'd like to soak the cranberries in water because that way they're not so hard, because they're going to go in the oven, they're going to dry out even more. So instead of them being really tough, if we soak them for a little while in some warm water, that softens the cranberry up.
Well, let me just ask you then, why wouldn't we just use fresh cranberries rather than buy dried cranberries?
That's a good question. If you ever tasted a fresh cranberry, yeah, super tart. Dried cranberries tend to be sweetened, and I just think it's going to make for a better application. Also, if you use something like a cranberry, as it cooks, it's going to give up the moisture, and you're going to get wet spots in the stuffing. So I just don't think it's going to be quite as attractive.
Oh, like you get in a muffin.
Like a muffin, yeah,
right, okay.
when using
Got
fresh
it.
fruit. There it is.
What's our next step?
So now that our vegetables are cooked a little bit, we're going to add some of our dry spices and a little garlic. I like to add the garlic. Yeah, it's always key. And we're going to add the garlic after we kind of soften the onions and celery, because I don't want to burn the garlic. Garlic has a lot of sugar. If we cook it at the same time, it tends to burn. And brown garlic is always bitter.
Good, right?
So we have about a tablespoon of fresh garlic. And then at the same time, let's add these elements here. We have some salt and black pepper. We have some sage. Sage grows naturally in California. We have some chopped parsley and some thyme. Okay. And these are all dried spices. The only thing that's fresh is the parsley, and that's available really anywhere. So now that
can you use dried parsley if you didn't have fresh?
Sure. So now that we've cooked this a little bit, let's add all of our spices into there. You can just mix it right in.
And about how much? Like
there's about a tablespoon, just about of every one. Voila. Okay. So I like the idea of cooking the dried spices along with the vegetables, because I think it really helps pull the flavor out of the dry spices. The French say pincer, to pinch the flavor out. And you'll notice in a lot of Indian cooking, they also cook spices in the fat. It just makes it that much more aromatic. And I think we almost can, you can really start to smell it. Okay, and our vegetables are pretty tender. So what I think we should do now is let's take that and put it in a bowl right here. So let's just drop that right in the bowl, Andra.
A big bowl.
Perfect. You leave the spoon there, and we'll put the pan behind us. There you go. And then we're going to add our toasted nuts. I think it's important to toast the nuts before you use them. They're going to be a lot more fragrant, and they're going to give a much stronger flavor. So you will use all of those nuts. It's a little less than a cup of nuts.
Okay. And how do you, for our viewers, can you tell them how to toast nuts?
Sure. You have two options. One is we could put them in a dry saute pan and almost fry them, but I find that they get a little scorched that way. I think the best way to do it is on a sheet pan or a cookie pan, and we can just do that in the oven until they're light golden brown.
Oh, okay.
We don't overdo it. The nuts are expensive, and we don't want them to get bitter.
Right.
And nuts were always kind of considered a special occasion item. Now nuts are commonplace, but there was a time when nuts were very expensive and very rare.